Hi everyone and welcome to my channel and welcome to the second episode in my corset making series. In the first episode I made the Merry Widow corset and now I'm moving on to the Victorian Pretty Housemaid corsets. For the pattern I'm using the pattern that's in the book Corsets by Jill Salon. The first thing I'm doing is copying the pattern to a Word document so I can scale it up and print it out. To do that I made a 1x1 inch square which I laid over the ruler on the pattern. Then I sized it up to match the square. I then printed this page out and checked if the square was actually 1 inch to make sure my printer settings were accurate. And would you look at that, it was a match. So then I quickly figured out the waist size of the corset in the book and compared it to my own waist size. And then I calculated that I would have to size the pattern up so that 1 inch of the pattern grid matched 1.1 inch in real life. So to do that, to a 1.1 by 1.1 inch square, and went ahead and scaled up all the pattern pieces and printed them out. I now have the scaled up pieces here and I'm first going to cut these out and tape them together. So let's start doing this. Here we have all the pattern pieces cut out and assembled. So now I'm going to make a mock-up, and just like I did last time, I will be making it out of old bed sheets. So let's do that right now. Okay, I finished the mock-up, and what I did was I put safety pins in the back because we're gonna have lacing, so it will be a little bit flexible. And I thought putting safety pins in for the mock-up would be fine because then there is some movement. And I didn't put in any of the boning or cording yet because that will take 500 years. So this is just the general shape of the corset. So I'm going to try and see if it fits. I think we're good. Yeah, not bad. Very happy. And I think I can now start working on the real thing. I have this blue twill fabric and then this white fabric, and this will be the outside corset and it will be the lining or the inside. It's the same fabric, just a different color, but it's really sturdy, so it should work really well. Then I got these panels for the front. I have some embroidery thread for the flossing. I've got this white thread but also silver one, and I'm not sure if I'm actually going to use this, so we'll see when we get to that point. That's one of the final steps. Then I have some white bias tape, then a white twill tape for the waist tape. Then I also got this bias tape. This has a little lace edge, so I thought that would be really cute for the top part of the corset. So now that I've got my supplies, I'm going to start by just cutting all the pieces out. Okay, I have all my pieces cut out. As you can see, I've added quite a big seam allowance, much bigger than I usually would. But that's because I have to do the cording, and that usually makes the pieces smaller. So I'm first going to do the cording and then retrace the pattern pieces to the right size. So for the cording I'm going to start with this hip panel because this one's pretty straightforward. It's just straight rows of cording all the way along the panel, and then for these ones it's going to be a little bit more difficult because there's some more curvature here, but we'll get to that one later. I'm going to start with this one. I have this yarn for my cording, which is just a cotton yarn. I hope it's going to be alright. And I've got my pieces. So first I'm going to lay the outer fabric over the lining fabric. like this. Then on this one I've already traced the piece before. So let's roughly draw out 2 millimeters along this panel. I now have roughly marked out the spaces, and I'm now just gonna go over to my sewing machine and just use one of my pressure feet to get the 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter mark. So let's go to the sewing machine. So here we have one panel corded, and if I lay this on top of the other one that hasn't been corded yet, yeah, you can definitely see that's become smaller. So I'm really glad I cut the pieces out too big, so that I can then lay the pattern over top and retrace the whole thing again. So this took about 1 hour, so I've got a couple of hours to go. So now I'm going to just cord all the other pieces. My hands are now hurting from just doing this, so I'm probably gonna have to space this out over the next couple of days. But yeah, I really like how this turned out, and you can already see that it's become way more stiff, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to do the cording on all these pieces, and then we'll be back. As you can see, the cording is now done, and I've retraced the pattern pieces on the wrong side and then cut them out to have a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. So now I can start putting the corset together. So the first step is to sew these top panels together. Now I need to add the boning channels over the seams. I cut out these boning channels out of the outer fabric, and I made them about 3 times the width of the boning. To do this, I'm first folding the seam allowance to one side. Then I'm sewing one side of the boning channel down on the other side of the seam from where the seam allowance is folded to. Then I repeat this for the other side of the boning channel and seam allowance. Once the boning channels are sewn on, I finish the seams by pressing them to one side. Trimming the seam allowance that's underneath. Folding it down. And hand sewing this to the lining layer. it's time to attach the hip yoke to the upper part of the corset. For this I'm making sure that the top row of the cording is right next to the seam for a neat finish. The seam is then finished the same way as before. The back panels are next, and for these I already made the boning channels while I did the cording. So now I can go ahead and attach these finished panels to the rest of the corset. Okay, so here we have most of the corset assembled. I've also already sewn on these boning channels and these channels, and I also decided to add a little bit of a border, if you will, along here to just hide the fact that some of these boning channels were a little bit too short. Now I need to put in the busk and sew the busk panels on. To do this, I first sewed the two pieces that make up the outer panel of the corset. I decided to make the lining for these panels out of the blue outer fabric as well, because it could be visible from the outside. The white lining fabric is now used as a type of interfacing to make these panels more sturdy. Then, for this side of the busk, I marked out where I would need to leave gaps in the seam. Then I sewed the seam, making sure to skip over the marked parts. Then I inserted the busk and top stitched along the outer edge using a zipper foot. For the other side of the busk, I first marked where I would need to make some holes for the tabs to go through. Then I used a couple of knitting needles to make the holes. After that I sewed the center front seam. Busk was then inserted and again I top stitched along the edge. As you can see, I've already put in the eyelets. I didn't film this because no one wants to see me become increasingly more frustrated trying to get all of his eyelets done and lined up correctly. So I just went and did that off camera. And then I also already put in the waist tape. And I only need to stitch it down here, and to do this I'm just going to sew over this line in the front to catch the waist tape on the inside. And here I also pinned on an extra boning channel. My original plan was to just sew about 7mm from this line in here and then put the boning right here. However, as you can see right here, the cording doesn't completely reach the seam, so I decided to just add the boning channel over the seam to cover this up. So now I'm going to pin the other boning channel to this side and then I can sew that up, and then I think it's time to put in the boning and start working on the finishing touches. Okay, so for the binding, for the top I've already really quickly stitched on this one with the lace and trimmed the top, and I've also already trimmed the bottom. So now I'm going to pin the normal bias tape over this. Then I decided to hand sew it because sewing it on the machine and then having to make sure I don't break 10,000 needles by accidentally going over the boning is just annoying. So I'm just gonna go and pin this down and then hand sew it. I now have the binding finished at the top and at the bottom, and now I'm going to do the flossing. And for this I looked at so many different designs and so many accent corsets, and some of these are so beautiful and so incredibly intricate, but I don't think I have that skill. So I came up with a bit of a simpler design, and I already made a swatch. So here we have the swatch, and this is designed for the single boning and this is for the double ones. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this to the corset, and I've decided to do the flossing on these ones that reach all the way down, and then I may also do it on these, but I'm not sure yet. So I'm just going to go and do the other ones, see how it looks, and then decide if I'm going to do more. And that's the first one done. Now I'm going to move on to the double design. And this is what both designs look like when you have them next to each other. So now I'm going to continue doing this for all the other channels, at least the long ones, and then we'll be... Okay, the flossing is done, and I think I'm going to keep it like this. I don't think I'm going to do these. Maybe in the future I'll change my mind and then I can always go back in and do the flossing over here. But for now, I just like how this looks. So now it's time for the final step, which is putting in the lacing in the back. So let's switch them around. And I have my lacing over here. Just put this little stitch marker in to mark the center. And I'm going to start by going from the back to the front, like here on this side, and then the same on the other side. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and lace till I get to the 7th eyelet, I believe, because then I'm gonna do the bunny ears. So let's just keep going. So now, because we have the bunny ears here, I'm gonna go back in here in the same spot, or just one down. Do the same on this side. So instead of crossing over, I'm going in one down, and then go back to the same thing of just doing the usual crossing. So it's done. And I'm just gonna put this on and then we'll take a look at the final result. So here we have the finished corset. And I'm so happy because unlike the previous one, this actually fits. And if anything, I'd say it's maybe a bit too big because there's almost no gap here in the back. But that's fine because I can lace it all the way to where I need it to be. I'm not tight lacing anyway, so this is fine. But I love this color. I'm really happy with the flossing and just the general shape. This works really well. Yeah, so I think this is a success. And very happy that this one is much better than the previous one. So thank you all for watching and I hope you enjoyed this. And maybe one day I'll make another corset. Who knows?